Okay, anybody who knows me knows that I am not flashy. So if I got all this going on today, I must be up to something. Tune in for story time with Time Mag. Okay, y'all, today I'm going to share with you a Bible story that really changed my life. I was probably married about 7 or 8 years when I stumbled on this Bible story while sitting in the car pickup line waiting for my kids to get out of, I think one was in preschool and one was in kindergarten. So I was doing the regular carpool mom thing, and at that point in my life I was really serious about learning more about God and getting serious about my relationship with God. And so I would read my Bible while I sat in the car pickup line waiting for my daughters. And literally I really didn't know how to study the Bible back then, and so I figured, I would just open my Bible and wherever it plopped to, that's what I would read for that day, figuring that's what God needed me to know, wanted me to see or learn about his word for that day. So I'm going to read to you basically one of the Bible stories that I read during that time period that really changed my life, and it made my marriage make a whole lot more sense to me. So it's gonna sound really weird, but here we go. So it says, the first time God spoke to Hosea, he said, "Find a whore and marry her. Make this whore the mother of your children." And the next verse said, Hosea did it. He picked Gomer. She got pregnant and gave him a son. So I know it sounds like really crazy, but like, why would I fixate on that? Well, if you've been following me for a little while, you probably know by watching some of my videos that there was a time in my life when I was very promiscuous from about age 14 to about age 20. And so I went through a lot. I, had a lot of relationships that were unauthorized by God, a lot of fornication, and a lot of consequences from the choices that I made. And so there were a lot of times when I felt inadequate or felt dirty or felt unlovable, especially, after, some situations that I experienced in my life that I haven't yet shared. I'm going to do the video. Still haven't been released to do it, but keep riding with me because you'll want to hear that story too. But certainly there was a time when I felt like I wasn't qualified, or I would never be qualified to be anyone's wife. And yet God still blessed me through all of the things that I had been through. All of the bad choices that I had made, all the unauthorized relationships. He still blessed me with an amazing husband. And so I never could understand what it was about my husband that made him able to love me. But stumbling upon the book of Hosea really helped me understand how my husband could meet me, fall in love with me, and marry me, even though I had such a tremendous past. And so this book of the Bible, Hosea, is also what inspired me to write my second book, which is called Love and the Affair. And it's all about my early marriage relationship with my husband, and how I think it's about the first 7 years or so of our marriage, maybe less, of how I had to learn to accept the unconditional love that my husband was offering me, and how God used my husband and his way of loving me to help me have a clearer picture of the unconditional love that God offers us, no matter how dirty we feel, no matter how unworthy we feel, that God through Jesus shows us and redeems us from our fallen state and cleans us up and makes us acceptable to God. And once we're acceptable to God, anything in our life is possible. And so I want to share a little bit about this book of Hosea, my interpretation anyway. And certainly I outline it more again in my book called Loving the Affair. You can hit me up down below if you're interested. It's not currently on the market. It's been off the market for a while. Been toying with whether I want to bring it back, but certainly I do still have several copies available if there's something you're interested in. But that's not why I'm here. I want to share with you about how God can change a hoochie into a housewife. Yes, he can. All right, so let's talk about the book of Hosea. And forgive me for looking down, but it's been a little while since I really shared this story or taught on this story. And so one thing you have to know is, I was like, who is this Hosea dude? Why is he important? What do I need to know about Hosea? And so in reading the lead-in into the book in my Bible, let's go back for a second. So when I first started studying the Bible, I was so green and so unconfident. Is that a word? Anyway, but it just so happened that my kids were in Christian school, and they had to have Bibles for school. And so I bought them the I think they had to have the New King James Version. I can't remember, but there was a children's study Bible, an awesome study Bible back then. You can't even find it anymore. But I bought it for them for their school, and as I started reading through it, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I can understand this. So I actually bought a copy for myself, and so I would study a teen study Bible. It was kind of intentional because back then I was kind of ministering to teens a little bit too. Well, I knew that was what my ministry, where God was leading me, and so anyway. And so in that Bible, it had like this background on Hosea, and it said, that he was one of the minor prophets. And I was thinking, a minor prophet, what is that? Well, they're unlike the prophet Isaiah or Jeremiah, whose books are very lengthy. Hosea, his story only covers a short segment or short period. And so he's considered a minor prophet when you consider it up against an Isaiah or a Jeremiah. That's my easy explanation. So let me just stop really quickly and give you a better explanation of who Hosea is. Hosea indeed was considered a minor prophet. There were 12 minor prophets in the Old Testament Bible, and that is basically, they're considered minor prophets because their books of prophecy are rather short in comparison to the major prophets. But the biggest thing that you will want to know about Hosea is that his name means salvation, and that's going to be important later on. But when I saw what he was asked to do, which was go pick a prostitute, marry her, and have children with her, I was like, that ain't minor. God, that ain't minor. That's a big thing to ask. And at first I was like, is there a typo in this book? Because how God gonna ask the man of God to go marry a hoe? Like, really? Okay, I need to know about this Hosea's dude, because dude, wow. Okay, and he did it. I mean, after the verse 2, when he was asked, it says the first time God spoke to him, he said, find a whore and marry her, make this whore the mother of your children. But then here's the part I left out, and he said, here's why. This whole country has become a whorehouse, unfaithful to meet God, right? And so the very next thing it says that Hosea does is he did it. He picked Gomer. She got pregnant and gave him a son. Now, this is the Message version, which is like a more kind of in-your-face version of the Bible, kind of keeping it real kind of version. But the point is that he didn't hesitate to do what God asked him to do. He did it right away, he didn't say, now God, come on, can't you give me a virgin? Why I got to go marry the hoe? But God was using his life as an analogy, as an example to the children of Israel, of their very own whoredom and their very own whorishness, and how they were being unfaithful to him. And so Hosea was willing to allow his life to be an example, because that's what God called him to do. So his obedience was amazing. Even after Hosea did what God said, unfortunately, a hoe is still a hoe. And so Gomer at some point went back to making bad decisions, and went back to chasing prior lovers. And Hosea, though, was not willing to give up. He decided, you know what, I'm gonna fight for my wife, my family. And that's the same thing that God was saying, is that even though you continue to be a whore, and you continue to turn your back on me, and you continue to discount all the things that I've done for you, you even use the stuff that I've given you to chase after your other lovers. But even still, I am still willing to take you back, because you are my covenant bride, or you are my relationship. And so it just reminded me, of how blessed I am, that even, you know, in the midst of my marriage relationship, when things were good and sometimes things were bad, but it's so easy to go backwards to what you know and what you're comfortable with, as opposed to staying there and accepting the love that is being lavished on you, and fighting through the little things to get on solid ground. But you know, Hosea wasn't no fool. Hosea was like, call your mama in the court. Let's accuse her of what she did. She's been a whore, bringing bastard children into the world. You know, I'm gonna fix her. I'm gonna dump her in the field. She'll go on the hunt for her lovers, but she won't catch them. She'll look high and low, and she won't find them. Then she'll say, oh, you know, now I'm gonna go back, you know, to my husband, the one I started out with, because my life was better off before. Hosea goes on to talk about, you know, she didn't know that it was I all along who wined and dined and adorned her. It was I who was the one who dressed her up in the big city fashions and jewelry that she wasted on the Baal, which is the idol god, those orgies, you know. Well, guess what? No more whining and dining. I'm going to expose her. You know, I'm going to expose all her, you know, to the public. All those fly-by-night lovers she had, they're going to be helpless to help her. Party time is over. I'm calling a halt to it, you know. And I just remember thinking that, you know, there's really nothing new under the sun. Like, it would be one thing if the stuff that we got was from Satan, but no. The stuff that we use to party and to do all of these ungodly things are actually blessings that God has given us. The money, the vehicles, the clothes, you know, the intelligence, all of those things we just use, all those material things and all of those things, we just use it to commit greater sins, you know, against God with greater skill, power, and effect. And so this book was just like an in-your-face reminder, even though it was written to cause the Israelites' attention and call them back to God and make them stop in their tracks and realize how they were really blessed, and you know, how they had become, you know, spiritual whores in their relationship with God. It is still relevant to us today, and it was just a powerful smack in the face for me at the time. But then, you know, in the next chapter, Hosea goes on and says, though, but God ordered me, start all over. Love your wife again. Your wife who's been in bed with her latest boyfriend, your cheating wife. Love her the way I, God, love the Israelite people, even as they flirt and party with everything, with every god that takes their fancy. It was unbelievable to me that God would say, okay, first of all, marry a prostitute, marry a whore. make her the mother of your children. But then when she goes back to what she knew best, which is hoeing, even though I called her out, God still says, okay, forgive her. And, start all over. But the crazy part is that she had whored herself out so much until she was kind of like a concubine or a sex slave or whatever. I don't know what the proper terminology is. But the crazy part is she had gone so low that she sold herself into servitude, right? So in order to redeem her, Hosea had to pay to get his whorish wife back. So to add insult to injury, he had to put out good money. It cost me the price of a slave. But then I told her, from now on, you're living with me. No more whoring, no more sleeping around. You're living with me and I'm living with you. So at the end of the day, he went through all that, but he still wasn't no punk, because he's like, look, I'm buying you back. I'm following what God has asked me to do. I am buying you back. I value you, but baby girl, understand something. Enough is enough. You're going to cut all this foolishness out. Today is the day that when you come back up in here, you got to get it together. I too, like the children of Israel, had spent a lot of time in my life making physically whorish decisions, not just literally like sleeping around, but also like prostituting the gifts and the talents that God had given me, and the physical gifts, the vehicle that I used to drive to all the places I ain't have no business being, and using the car and the clothes to dress up and present myself in a alluring way, and abusing the gifts and talents that he gave me, chasing other types of idols, accolades, titles, relationships, all of those things, and not considering the source and why God actually gave me those things. So ultimately, this book showed me how God had prepared my husband to have a compassionate and loving heart for me long before we'd ever met and married. And I don't really want to share that story right now because it's kind of personal. It is in the book, but it talks about a situation that happened in my husband's family that prepared him to be able to love someone who had a secret that if found out, they would be outcasts of society or looked down upon. And so his family had to guard that secret with everything to protect their family member. And so he understood what it's like for someone to live in isolation or live up under the shadow of a secret. And so when I shared my secret with him, he was able to accept me and all my baggage, because he understood exactly the weight of secrets and of societal judgment. And so again, this book it was just a revelation for me, and I just marveled at, like I said from the beginning, that God can love us so much that no matter how far we've fallen or what we've done, he is willing to redeem us. He's already done it through his son, Jesus Christ. His greatest possession, his greatest joy, his greatest gift. When he introduced Jesus to us, he said, this is his son in whom he is well pleased. And he was willing to give up the life of his son in exchange for our sins. And so God can love the unlovable, and he can change us from this crimson red stained sin-filled people and cover us in the red blood of the Lamb of Jesus Christ and make us into new creations that are capable of being loved in the way that God intends for us to love. And so that's a long way around, but I just wanted to share that with you today because I just remember the first time that I read that story and how much it meant to me. And maybe my story isn't your story, so maybe you weren't a whore. And so maybe you might turn up your nose and say, I can't believe she admitted that. Then this ain't for you, baby. But this is for that girl who needs to know that there is joy on the other side, girl. And you can hold your head up and head up, literally hold your head up and know that you can be forgiven and you can be fully and completely loved in spite of your past. So I hope this little story time helps someone today. Until the next time, I am Ty Mac, and this is Milk and Condoms with Ty Mac. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, tell a friend. Thank you for coming on this journey with me, and as always, I love you.